Merci Madame Rajavi pour cette présentation très complète, très claire et je dirais aussi très émouvante de ce qui se passe aujourd'hui à Ashraf. Et merci pour tout ce que vous faites pour attirer l'attention de la communauté internationale sur ses responsabilités face à un risque de massacre. Et la question, comme vous l'avez posée, c'est le temps est court, il faut agir, agir vite. Et pour cela, nous avons une série d'intervenants qui vont préciser certains des points que vous avez déjà abordés, tant en termes de droit qu'en termes de stratégie qui peuvent être développés. Now I will give the floor to Professor Guy Goodwin-Gill. Is a specialist on international refugee law at the Oxford University, and he will speak about this issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Madam Rajavi. I have looked in some detail at the mandate of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and at its relation to the situation of the residents of Ashraf. And I have looked also not only at the mandate of the office but its responsibility, a responsibility which it owes to the peoples of the United Nations through the UN General Assembly to provide, in accordance with the words of its statute, international protection to refugees and to seek, together with governments, permanent solutions for the problem of refugees. And I have asked myself the question why it is that the UNHCR has hesitated in the present case to provide that international protection to the residents of the refugees. Clearly, the residents of Ashraf manifestly have a well-founded fear of persecution in their country of origin. That is indisputable, and no one, I think, seriously seeks to challenge it. It is also clear that the protection and asylum which they once enjoyed in Iraq is now under threat. Therefore, to declare publicly and authoritatively, because the UNHCR is an authoritative organization, it has 60 years of experience behind it now, it is an authoritative organization recognized by the international community of states at large as having the right, as a matter of international law, to intervene on behalf of refugees. It requires UNHCR to declare publicly and authoritatively that the residents of Ashraf are indeed, in the sense of international law, refugees entitled to protection. Why is this necessary? It is necessary, it seems to me, because it will send a clear signal that international law is engaged on this issue and that international obligations are owed. In particular, that the residents of Ashraf as refugees are entitled to the benefit of the principle of non-refoulement. But that is only the beginning. UNHCR, together with governments, as I said a moment ago, is responsible for seeking a permanent solution. And this in turn requires an active engagement on the part of the UNHCR with its partners throughout the world. And it's not alone in this business. As we've seen through the substantial measure of support which the residents of Ashraf have received by parliamentarians and communities around the world. For UNHCR, then, there is out there already a constituency of support ready to help it fulfill its statutory function of finding a permanent solution. I must confess that though I've read some correspondence and documentation emanating from UNHCR over the last 4 or 5 years, I am still uncertain as to the reasons why UNHCR hesitates to fulfill its functions. It may be that in the period of occupation it was felt, for example, that as protected persons under Geneva Convention 4 there was no need for UNHCR to intervene. But that, of course, is a situation which has effectively come to an end. Reviewing the limited available documents, though, what I can see, what I suggest is there, is a number of assumptions and misconceptions. Assumptions and misconceptions which seem to be driving policy in this issue in a way which, to my mind, is inconsistent with UNHCR's own practice and inconsistent with the principles which it regularly calls upon states to observe. So, for example, the UNHCR appears to assume that membership of the PMI is somehow incompatible with refugee status. It doesn't explain why that incompatibility arises. And it seems to me this fails to recognize what has long been recognized, that commitment to political ideals is precisely what too commonly makes the refugee, leading him or her to be persecuted. Alternatively, it might be that the UNHCR requires or seems to require that it can only exercise protection where individuals approach it. But this again is inconsistent with practice. UNHCR does seek to exercise protection in relation to groups and categories of refugees as its mandate, as its statute suggests. And yes, it is indeed the case that very often individual analysis of cases is required, particularly when the search is on for a solution to find out, as I mentioned a moment ago, who has links where. But I think what we see perhaps here is a tendency to confuse that detailed attention to individual cases on the one hand with the manifest and immediate need for international protection by the competent refugee agency which exists today, and which I think the path to which lies through a declaration of refugee status now, leaving, of course, other options open. And as we know, the protected person status of the residents of Ashraf and their disarming has been confirmed for the benefit and the satisfaction of the US authorities and the International Committee of the Red Cross since 2004. But for the UNHCR acting, fulfilling its mandate, the mandate entrusted to it by the General Assembly, it seems to me there is a clear need, an immediate need for it to take steps to exercise international protection. Firstly, by sending that signal, which I mentioned in opening, that here we have a group of persons, a group of individuals who are refugees in the sense of international law, and as a matter of international law, are entitled to international protection. Thank you.